guys, Dan with S3 Archery here, and I just wanted to do a quick video that kind of highlighted the three main types of arrows out there and kind of Joe and my preferences here at S3 Archery. For those of you that are senior shooters, you probably have a preference. You know, specific brand, length, tip weight, the whole works. Especially if you're a hunter and you're going for a really heavy broadhead. Target shooter is going for something that's really, really light and flat trajectory. But this video is going to be a little bit more kind of basic as far as, you know, your new shooters, or maybe somebody that, you know, got into this sport and decided, hey, you know what, I went to a local shop or I ordered online and I got my GT Trad carbons and that's how it's going to be. This one's just to kind of open up our eyes a little bit and kind of go over some of the pros and cons of them. I know there's other videos out there like this, but like I said, we wanted to kind of do our spin on it. We've had a fair amount of practice with all three of these types. Although we kind of did it backwards in the sense that the most recent one that I've been shooting has actually been the aluminum, which is something that those guys that are about 20 years older than me probably spent a ton of time with, and maybe even started with. But the three different types, just to get back to the focus of this video, is going to be your wood arrows, whether that be Sitka spruce, POC, there's some laminated birches, there's a lot of different options of wood, but just in general, a wood type, natural material arrow. Then we have an aluminum arrow, and then we have a carbon arrow. Like I said, these three arrows types pretty much capture the good majority of the market out there. Granted, there are some fiberglass things for bow fishing and other stuff, but we're going to focus on these three here. And so for us here at S3 Archery, we actually started with wood. I ordered up a dozen arrows from a company that's no longer in business down in Florida, and I got them. I had no idea what was going on, and so literally I had a Shakespeare bow that I found. It was what we started kind of this whole project, if you will, on. Called the guy up that made them and said, hey, this is what I've got. This is how far I think I pull it back. Can you make me some arrows? No problem. 3 weeks later, the arrow showed up. Extremely heavy. And I, you know, at the time we weren't so concerned about bare shaft tuning, and they flew just fine with the fletchings on. But that was, I'm almost 100% sure that was POC. I don't think it was any of the other types of material. And then after we got through, I broke just a ton of those original dozen between trying to bare shaft tune, and they just weren't flying right, and they were actually hitting my Mackenzie target and eventually snapping themselves because I think it weakened the actual material. But I have to say that we absolutely love wood arrows. Just the craftsmanship that it takes to make them, the tradition behind them. The 11-30 seconds is what our experience is in. Obviously, there's you know, there's a couple different diameters. There's a thicker and a thinner one. Joe ended up having one of the thinner ones. I think it was a 5/16. I can't remember exactly, but his he ended up getting for his original bow. And both him and myself ran into the problem of when we were actually ordering wood arrows to match our bows, we would go up 5 to 10 pounds based on just other people's recommendations, and then we would get the dozen arrows, we'd go to tune them, and unfortunately because of our draw lengths, we'd need to trim off so much length that now they became very, very short. The alternative is that we could have run a lighter tip up front, but in the glue-in tips, the 125 is definitely standard, I would say, for almost everybody out there, and there's definitely heavier tips. But if you get into the point where now your arrow is too short, putting a judo or a broadhead, something that has a little bit of lateral length to it, when you go to draw it back, it ends up, this one smoothly kind of transitions into the riser, but if there's something that's on there that's actually like it's kind of more lateral across, that's going to kick the arrow off the shelf. In theory, that's going to cause a lot of bad habits, and you could end up kind of dry firing your bow if, as you draw back, your arrow's falling off or it's pulling it off of the knock from the string. And so, although we love wood arrows, we steered away from them, but I do know that as we spend more and more time shooting, we will get back to the wood arrows. It's just a matter of time, because they feel great when you shoot them. I mean, when you do break them, it's unfortunate, but the cedar, it smells amazing. Tuning these arrows is extremely easy, because if you order an arrow that's you know, long enough, you can easily, with just a hacksaw and very careful or meticulous, cut through that, tune it yourself, trim it down, glue on your new tip. It doesn't take a bow shop to get your wood arrows in tune, and so that's a major, major plus on these. Also, if you're going to craft your own arrows, just the joy that you get from making your own arrows out of wood, I think, is just astronomical. And so that's end goal, I would love to be making my own arrows, but it takes time, takes equipment, and takes mental perseverance. So that's kind of our take on wood. We love it. It's a lot of maintenance issues though, but there's people out there that only shoot wood and they shoot amazing, and they have no arrow breakage at all. Just from our experience though, because of those, the length issues, the tuning process that we really care about kind of got us into some bad spots with that. And then once we did get some arrows we were shooting, we're having a lot of breakoffs right here because of the stumping and stuff we do. So that moves us on to our second type of arrow, which is going to be our carbon arrow here. This is a GT Trad 3555, very standard across the market. There's other companies that make carbon arrows as well. There's black finishes, there's different colors. We definitely lean towards the wood pattern, which is why these GT Trads really kind of speak to us here. This one is extremely durable. Joe and I have been stumping with these type of arrows, whether it be the 3555, the 5575, or the heavy hunters, pretty much exclusively after we broke those first couple of dozen of the wood arrows. And we just love them. It's hard to look at a carbon arrow and see something and decide I'm not going to shoot at that, because these arrows are tough. There's videos out there that they do an aluminum footing up front here, and so they'll cut a 1 inch, 2 inch, 7 inch, whatever length aluminum arrow that's the right diameter, and they can actually glue it on the front here, and that really reinforces this, because most of the failures that people have with these type of carbon arrows are going to be either it mushrooms up here because the insert gets pushed back, or you have knock breakage in the back because of that force. When it hits a solid object, that energy still needs to be transferred, and you can end up causing a crack back here. Obviously, anytime you hit something hard, regardless of if you have aluminum up front, in the back, you got to be very careful, because any arrow that is compromised and you shoot it, that energy, whether it's a great arrow or a bad arrow, it's all going in there. And so there's a lot of people that have gotten hurt shooting carbon arrows that were compromised, and so be very, very careful if you are going to be doing that type of stuff. And even on the arrows themselves, they say flex it. It's funny because every carbon arrow I've seen has always got that caution label, and we definitely recommend doing that. And so pretty exclusively, if we're out in the field, if we're hunting, Joe completely shoots just carbon arrows. The benefit being that they're extremely durable, they're extremely light, they aren't going to warp like a wood arrow might if it's exposed to a lot of heat or moisture. These arrows are going to be straight until they break. The negative part about this arrow is you pretty much need specialized equipment to tune this arrow. We were lucky in the sense that there was a local shop that was able to cut the arrows to length. We could buy just one at a time, bare shaft tune it. Once we got it the way we wanted, we'd have him make up another half dozen or dozen of them. But for someone who's just going to order online, it's a little bit more challenging. If you're just going to go off of the spine chart that's on Easton's website, is the one that we used. We have found that it's pretty accurate for some bows, but other bows, it's way off. And so you just got to be careful with that, because when this comes, if the insert's glued in especially, that's the length it's going to be. So we absolutely love these arrows. This is what you'll see a lot in our videos. But like I said, maintenance-wise, although it's low, initial tuning, I guess you would say, could be expensive, especially if you have a lot of errors in the beginning, because it's not easy to take half an inch off of this or an inch off. And obviously with any arrow, you cut it too short, you pretty much out of luck on that one. So that's the carbon arrow. And then the most recent one that I've been getting into a lot have been these aluminum ones. This one here in particular is a Easton Legacy 2016, which according to the online chart is absolutely perfect for the natural. And this is at 29.5 inches with 125 up front. And for whatever reason, I just love the way these arrows feel. Coming out of the bow, these are the heaviest by far, for same length, same tip. Basically, I mean, almost the same arrow, just transitioned across those different medias. And when this goes off, it shoots straight, it feels good. When it hits the target, I think because of the extra weight, it just buries itself in nice. The benefit of that being that if you have confidence in your arrow, you're going to shoot better. It's just across the board. If you believe in wood, you shoot wood, you're going to shoot wood well. If you believe in the carbon, you know it's going to perform for you every time, you're going to shoot it perfectly. And I've kind of gotten into that mindset now with these aluminum arrows. I picked them up locally at the shop. There was a gentleman who made just a ton of different arrows, and so I didn't do any of the work on this. I didn't order it online. It was literally just a lot that was ready. I picked it up. I knew it was about the right spine. Went home, shot them for a couple of weeks, and then I decided I'm going to cut off the fletchings on one of this guy and just see how it bear shafts. And so cut off the fletchings but left the quills on, pulled it back, shot it, and I was like, this is a ninja arrow. That's literally what I told Joe, because you can't see it. With this color pattern, as soon as it's off, it's in the target. And you go down, you're like, I wonder how this worked. And just dead straight, no problem. And it was probably about 3/4, half in. And it's like, that's pretty impressive for this type of arrow compared to my other guys. And so I started shooting these more and more. And I actually fell in love with this idea, but the color was so hard for me that I can't really register it when I shot it. And so I went out and picked up some similar arrows that are actually orange cap dipped, and you'll see them in a couple of videos. They're actually right here. I don't know if you can see them very well, but they're an orange cap on the back, pretty standard crest, and 3 orange fletchings on it, and the things look great. And so my preference is now to shoot these exclusively when I shoot at targets. And the benefit, of course, is obviously I have confidence in them. The weight is there naturally without any weight tubes or added inserts or other things. The downside is, once again, like the carbon, you need specialized equipment to cut these. These have glue-in nocks. There are some aluminum ones that have push-in nocks, but with this type of a knock, you're not going to be able to twist it to accommodate your bow if it needs just a slight offset on your feathers. It's just going to be whatever the jig was. The other thing is, obviously, the carbon and aluminum both have the screw-in tips, and so if you wreck an arrow, you can just take the tip off real easy. You don't have to glue or other things. But the downside of the aluminum, other than the specialized equipment, is that these arrows do bend. For what I'm using it for, it's perfect. They're never going to bend as I shoot at targets. But this summer, I'm going to actually bring out a couple of these and shoot at some soft targets, some decayed stumps, some leaf patches, other things like that, and really put these to the test. There's guys that have been shooting these for 30 years. And they hunt with them, they stump with them. There's a lot of experience out there that we just don't have. And I'm really interested in seeing, because of the confidence I have with this arrow on the target, how I can then kind of recreate that out in the field. And am I going to have a lot of arrow issues like I did have with the wood? Or if I'm smart about it, am I going to, all day long, be happy with the results and just know that there's going to be a certain level of attrition to these arrows that I might not have with the carbon, but I'm so much more confident, I'm so much happier shooting these that I'm willing to pay for those bent arrows in the long run to shoot these. So keep your eyes open on that. Kind of back to the beginning, those are the 3 different types. Preference, obviously, for us is that Joe loves the carbons. I enjoy the carbons, but the aluminums get me more excited, and so these are the ones that I'm going to be shooting more and more often, even if it's not in the field because of issues. If you kind of keep your mind open and try different things, you might be like myself. I thought for sure that the carbon was the way to go. Or maybe you're around a bunch of guys or gals that love shooting wood shafts, and so you just kind of get caught up in the excitement of other people, which is a good thing. But don't be down and trying other things, because sometimes you might find that there's something else there that just makes you happier when you're doing it. Same with the opposite. Maybe carbon is durable, but you know what? You're like, I just don't get excited about shooting the carbon. Or if I can craft some wood ones, even if they don't look as pretty and they occasionally have issues, I'm happier shooting them. Shoot what makes you happy, guys. Have fun out there.